This is Flat Out Agility, an Australian agility podcast. I'm Grace. Community in agility is as important as it is for any sport. Community provides support, encouragement, motivation, accountability, and social connection. A strong community is somewhere new people feel welcome, members regularly attend events, and there's good collaboration and open communication. In this episode, I'm going to talk about community building, mostly from a club perspective because that's what I know best, but I'll touch on some other forms of community building too. I'm fortunate to have inherited a strong club community from previous committee members, rather than needing to build it from scratch, but there are still things that I implemented or changed or helped with. So first, there are a few common barriers to community building that we need to consider. Clubs often rely on the same senior people year after year, while younger handlers can sometimes feel shut out or unheard. If a training or trialling environment isn't making an effort to be inclusive, not everyone is going to feel welcome. Some people have economic conditions that mean spending money on a hobby isn't realistic, and other people could afford to do it, but their dog didn't end up being suitable, and they're unable to get another dog. And of course, in Australia, we're spread out, so it's not always easy to connect geographically. Keeping these barriers in mind, we can implement some tactics to try to overcome them where possible. I live in Darwin, Northern Territory, where there is not a huge agility presence, but we have a small trialling community. I'm the president, and I also coach our agility training. We're very fortunate to have the capacity to host 6 trial weekends per year for our handful of trialers. We have 1 local judge, and for the other 5 trials, we fly up judges from other states. We only have around 10 active trialers, which means we always run our trials at a loss and recoup our costs through our manners training classes for the public. Despite these challenges, we are lucky to have any trials at all given our remote location and our small population. Our club's goal is to keep hosting trials and maintaining a presence in Darwin for agility and other dog sports, so our income is all used specifically for this, whether by funding trials, new equipment, seminars, or other things that bolster and encourage our members. Our weekly training nights are an opportunity for our regular trialers to socialise, as well as work on skills, run sequences, watch each other's runs, and share thoughts about handling. My focus at the moment is growing our agility community by recruiting new handlers and building them up from foundations to a trialling level so that we can have more participants in future to keep the club running. The main way that I recruit currently is through our manners training classes. People who attend these classes with their dogs are told at the end of their class block about our Agility Foundations classes, and they can also observe agility classes that take place in an adjacent field. The second way that I recruit new handlers is through social media. I use targeted posts in local groups that have managed to lead to a small number of enrollments. These posts are usually Canva templates that I update to match the club colours and be relevant for dog agility. I try to retain members by doing my best to provide a supportive community and learning environment. I work really hard to ensure my agility classes build upon one another, with the goal to get handlers and their dogs from foundations to a trialling level. I try my best to offer relevant, personalised advice for each dog handler team, and I really focus on ensuring dogs are having a good time by tweaking the reinforcement strategy for each dog. As I am not a professional trainer or a really experienced agility handler, my goal is to demonstrate my enthusiasm for agility and try to foster that enthusiasm in my handlers as well. I make sure to point out their successes, cheer on their hard work, and compliment their dogs. I also try to give them a realistic outlook on agility. I don't want to push my handlers into trialing too early just for the sake of it or for the club to have more entries. My goal is to have long-term club members, so I want to build capacity in our handlers so that when they do eventually get to trial, they are more likely to see success. It's my aim to always be upfront about what it takes to improve in agility and what kinds of skills are required as training progresses. At trials, our club works hard to make sure the environment is welcoming and inclusive. We celebrate all victories, no matter how small, and we lead by example with our positive behaviour toward each other and our dogs. During trial presentations, we also give out 2 special awards: an Almost Award for a dog handler team that just missed out, and an MVP award to highlight an individual who put in a noticeable effort to help set up, pack up, change bar heights, or any other contribution. We also have an annual breakup party and trialers presentation night where we award the top trialing dog for the year, sponsor title ribbons for all agility classes that year, and host games with prizes. Something I think is important to touch on is the community aspect for dogs. Now, not all dogs like other dogs, and by no means does your dog need to be friends with other dogs to do the sport, but I do actually think that the environment is easier and more enjoyable if dogs get on. I don't think all dogs need to get on, but if your dog has their own agility friends, I think it would only have a positive impact on them overall. I say this as someone with a dog who definitely does not like all the dogs at my club, but I do find she has an easier and more enjoyable time when the dogs she does like are present. But there are other ways besides clubs to build community. When I first started training my dog Marcy, I reached out to another local person I knew in the dog scene and asked if they knew anyone who had a young dog or puppy and was looking to get started in agility. When they revealed they'd just gotten a puppy themselves and wanted to work on foundations, we started training together in the evenings, and we continued doing that for at least a year, meeting up in local parks and then later going to club together. Later, I met some other handlers who were relatively new to the sport and were also keen, and we would meet up in parks on weekend mornings to train. In both these instances, I reached out to the other parties, so I really do recommend that you try doing the same if you're looking for training partners. By reaching out, you can start building a community where you work together and share resources. There are also professional training facilities in some places that offer regular classes or other events, and in that way you can sort of buy into an existing community. How active, engaged, or social it is will depend on the business owner, but there could be opportunities to offshoot from a facility like this into a sort of side community. You can also build community online. This might be particularly necessary for those of you who live in really regional or remote areas. For those living in the outback or far from a large capital city, you're going to be more limited. You can certainly buy your own equipment and train on your own, but finding or creating an online community might be worth your while. Now, the online dog world is pretty notorious for being largely terrible. However, I do think it's possible to find or create positive spaces if you learn to curate different platforms well. As a complete dog nerd, I've been in online dog spaces for a long time now, and I've found some communities that I like. Building community online requires active participation, so you really need to put yourself out there in a positive and engaging way. It's best to approach online spaces with an open mind and a good faith perspective, because otherwise you're setting yourself up to fail. You will run into bad faith actors in online spaces, but if you make an effort to be a positive, open-minded, and inclusive contributor, your online communities will become stronger and more pleasant places to be. I think the only real way to influence online spaces, if you're not the moderator of them, is to model the kind of behavior you'd like to see, as there is far less emphasis on etiquette and general social cues in the online sphere. Online classes and online memberships come with built-in communities, and the good ones should have some form of moderation already. There are parts of Facebook and Instagram that have successful communities, and there are other sites entirely that have the potential for building community as well, if you're willing to put the work in. If you're building your own space, you will need to moderate yourself to instill a culture. A strong community is accountable. It's one thing to say you want a positive, supportive culture, but it's another thing to actively maintain it. Communities should be safe. This means both humans and animals should be behaving in ways that are safe and appropriate. There should be no space for bullying, intimidation, harassment, or bigotry in our agility communities. Aggressive and/or reactive dogs should be handled carefully, and there should be a lot of thought into how they participate, if at all. Terms like reactive and aggressive mean different things to different people, so it's important that you define them for your community and outline what is considered acceptable and unacceptable behavior. Management and safety needs to be strongly considered in these instances. Now, I've only been leading my club for a couple of years, and thankfully the community is small enough that I haven't had to deal with any major ethical issues so far. But I do think it's important to try to get ahead of this, and what I did introduce at my club were our club values, to ensure that we had a framework we could come back to. But it's not just about having values, you also need to have follow-through. If someone behaves in a way that doesn't align with the culture you're trying to build, it needs to be addressed. That doesn't have to mean confrontation or conflict. A quiet check-in or redirecting the tone of a conversation or reminding people of the standards you want to uphold can often suffice. But if you never address anything uncomfortable, it sends the message that the behavior is acceptable. Likewise, if you're in a leadership role, you need to be open to feedback. A healthy community is one where people feel safe to speak up and know they'll be heard. This is one of the hardest parts of community building, but it's the hard work that's vital. Community isn't a byproduct, it's infrastructure. Without it, the sport collapses. These are the ways that my club works to build community, and some ways you can try building community on your own. I'd love to hear from others about what they do to build a strong agility community, whether it be at a club or somewhere else. This has been Flat Out Agility. Be kind to dogs.